again. Bishop Malusi Mpumlwana of the South African Council of Churches joins us now to share some of his fondest memories of the late Archbishop Desmond Tutu. Mpumlwana, thank you very much for availing yourself for us this evening. I guess he was somebody that felt the warmth and the mercy and generosity of other people, as people describe him as somebody who is that, who's generous and who's warm. When he first arrived in Johannesburg under the wings of Father Trevor Huddleston, do you get a sense that he leaves behind a South Africa that is warm, generous and merciful?
I'm afraid not. I think he leaves as a sad man in that regard. I mean, if you think about it, when we struggled against apartheid, and when the Archbishop gave his enormous energy to that campaign, there was no debate about what is right. There was, I'm quite sure that those who continued to argue for apartheid would have slept with a bad conscience, because there was a united mindset about the need for justice, freedom, and peace in our land. And that's the kind of environment in which the Archbishop actually thrived. Today we have a politics of disunity, a nation of disagreement, a society that is at odds with itself. Doesn't matter which way you look at it, whether you're looking at the way we treat women in gender-based violence and femicide, where we relate to women and men with a different sexual orientation, the way we play our politics in fact, there isn't even what I call a sacred space where all political parties would know there are certain parts of our body politic that don't get politicized, but rather we have to agree on those because they build a common South Africa. We don't have any of this. And so it is an environment.
Mpumlwana, unfortunately, our connection to you is a bit intermittent. I understand you are back. Please finish your thoughts, sir.
I was just saying that he leaves a sad man in that regard, and that we have some work to do to bring back something of what he had in mind when he talked about a rainbow nation. It might not have to be rainbow, it may be different, but it must be a common nation. Right now, we don't have that.
Right. We are made to understand as well that his was not a life of opulence. He also wanted to be buried with the cheapest coffin possible. When you take a look at his relationship in church, do you perceive that the church gives or the church takes rather in today's society?
I already said something about how even the church in some instances appears to be some kind of lucrative business. I mean, anybody that gets rich from church must be a fraud. That's all I can say. It cannot be the Church of Jesus Christ that makes any individual rich. And that Desmond would have no time for making money out of the gospel.
Mpumlwana, you speak of a politics of disunity when you assess South Africa's landscape in terms of where we are with our social cohesion project. And you speak of a common society. What does it take to achieve this, given the number of years that we have traveled to get to this point where we are still talking about a disunited, if there's such a word, community, if you will?
I think it is really, maybe what I can say is that we all operate on the ethos of scarcity, kind of an ethos of scarcity. You know, the Council of Churches, which is the legacy of Archbishop Desmond, and its heads of churches resolved after some serious discernment that the problem in South Africa is that we failed to achieve the promise of the post-apartheid South Africa. We struggled against apartheid, but we had a promise in our minds. Everyone had an idea, an ideal of what is good. That is the opposite of apartheid. We have not met that promise. And we defined this promise as a just, reconciled, and mind you, I'm saying reconciled, I'm not saying social cohesion. Reconciled, peaceful, equitable, and sustainable South Africa that is free of racism, of tribalism, of xenophobia, and gender prejudices, free of corruption and deprivation, where there's food and shelter for all and every child born can grow to its God-given potential. And when that doesn't happen, you get, therefore, a mindset of scarcity where everybody thinks, I've got to grab as much as I can for myself. And that's what I mean, whether you're running a political party or anything, you want everything for yourself. And that's what is happening. And as a result, therefore, it becomes a situation of the survival of the fittest. I will kill in order to survive. And that's what I mean when I say that it's a society of disunity, because it is based on a mindset of scarcity, of if you don't stand up for yourself, nobody's going to stand up for you.
According to your understanding, what moved him?
Spirituality. Desmond's spirituality was such a deep well, a reservoir of not just faith, but of hope, of power, of immense capacity, of fearlessness, of, it just didn't seem to think that anything could stop him. And that is because of his spirituality, a deep spiritual man. And of course, he had been trained by the Community of the Resurrection. He was trained by monks, and he had, therefore, a routine and a rhythm of worship and prayer. And of course, in the midst of that was what we call a Eucharistic spirituality, which means a spirituality which would say in normal language of Holy Communion. But we call it Eucharist because it comes from the Greek word for thanks, Eucharistou, thank you. So it's a spirituality of being thankful to God, absolute gratitude. And this is the reason why he, and I say this, he was a man of superlatives. He would say, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. I mean, almost like he cannot say something is less wonderful. Everything is about, he was superlatives because he was full of gratitude. He could see possibilities where none could be seen.
I can tell just from the way you are describing him that he has left a lasting impact on your life. What is it that, you take away from this moment, Tata?
I think we take away from him a very, very profound sense of mission for the church. The Archbishop was challenged when the South African Council of Churches was brought before what was called the Eel of Commission. That was intended to prove that the Council of Churches is actually a communist organization that is there for terrorism, if you like, instead of the gospel of Jesus Christ. And of course, he wrote and presented what he called the divine intention, which is a testament of what it is that is Christian in the work for social justice, where in the words of Christ, who says, I was hungry and you did not feed me. I was thirsty and you did not give me to drink. I was in prison and you did not visit me. I was sick and you did not look after me. I was naked and you did not clothe me. And he says, the judgment in the end will be on the basis of, and he says, for as long as you have not done this for the least of these, my sisters and brothers, you did not do it for me. And Desmond believed that it was absolutely essential for this to be the purpose and mission of the church in South Africa. And that's really what the legacy is. And that's why we stand up for what we stand for. And we cannot mortgage this. We cannot mortgage this to any political party, to any government, and to anybody, but to Jesus of Nazareth.
Bishop Malusi Mpumlwana, Nkosi, he's with the South African Council of Churches.